Hello and welcome to this lecture on qualitative data analysis. After this lecture, students should be able to appreciate the difference between social anthropological and the interpretivist approaches to qualitative data analysis, explain the process of transcribing, coding, displaying, and drawing conclusions from qualitative data. Qualitative data is usually collected through interviews, available data, or observational data or field research. And qualitative data analysis results in the interpretation of action or representations of meaning in the researcher's own words drawn from those interviews, available data, or observations. Qualitative data in this way tends to be more case-focused than variable-focused. It tends to focus more on the cases, the person we're interviewing, the event we're watching, the data we've collected, rather than focused on the variables that might influence those cases. In contrast to quantitative data, qualitative data is usually in the form of words, stories, descriptions, pictures, incidents, etc., instead of any sort of summarized numerical values. So in many ways, qualitative data tends to be focused on very descriptive, in detailed analysis of a particular event, people, or cases with very limited sample size, whereas quantitative data tends to be focused more descriptive of a large group or large number of cases, whereas qualitative data tends to be focused on a more specific case or selection of cases and providing more detail on a smaller number of cases. There are two main approaches to qualitative data analysis. The first is the social anthropological approach, which argues that there exists behavioral rituals or regularities, such as rites, rituals, rules, etc., that affect everyday life. This sort of approach builds off of the work of Durkheim and his idea of social facts, facts that could encompass all societies and all groups. And in this approach, it is the researcher's job to discover these regularities and to describe them in detail and show how they are spread throughout society. This sort of approach tends to go towards the generalization or expanding the results of our study to other groups. And this is in contrast to the interpretivist approach, which argues that actors are always interpreting situations and that these interpretations are often quite unpredictable. Furthermore, these interpretations and actions are largely determined by people's actions and responses. So rather than there being some sort of broad social fact out there, instead we are constantly interpreting and reinterpreting what happens around us, taking in new data, reinterpreting that data, and responding to what's going on around us. This approach tends to be less generalizable, but provides an interpretation of how other people might view their reality. So rather than us, the researcher, applying our view of reality to what other people are experiencing, we're trying to get the people who are participating in our study to describe to us their view of reality. Qualitative data analysis is almost always emergent, in that it is a process of gradual induction and discovery. We're constantly building up new ideas and new hypotheses and using those ideas to generate theories. So we're constantly going from collecting data to building hypotheses to generating theories. This means that there's a lot of iteration between data collection, coding, and analysis, as well as that development of theory, such that it is really hard to clearly distinguish one step of the research process from another. We're constantly collecting data, looking for patterns, analyzing that data, coming up with theory, going back and collecting more data with this new theory in mind, testing to see if that theory still works, collecting more data, coding, analyzing that data, etc. So here is a diagram of what this process might look like. Again, this is a cleaner, less messier version of what this research process really looks like in reality. In reality, we're constantly going to go back and forth between collecting data and describing data. Really, we miss somebody or something and we need to go back and collect more data. Already starting to group things as we're collecting it in our head, starting to group things by issues or theme, then realizing our theme doesn't work and we need to go back to describing it in more detail and collecting new data. So it's a constant process of back and forth. And the idea here is that we're going to be trying to make sense of what we're seeing, but also leaving our minds open to what new things we might see as well. And so part of this process can be things like memoing and writing down what we're seeing and kind of keeping a memo and a diary about what's happening, drawing conclusions from that data, and then going back and testing it and looking at other cases, and sort of trying to figure out what data we should keep and what information we should get rid of. And lastly, we're going to try to write a report that does a job of describing what we saw, what sort of patterns and themes we saw, what sort of theories we think might come out of this. All right, that is all for this lecture. Thank you for watching.